born in 1732. Though he was not considered smart, George applied himself to his studies and mastered trigonometry and surveying, which includes both algebra and calculus, by age 16. At 17, George became the official surveyor of Culpeper County, Virginia. For the next 3 years, George endured the hardships of frontier life as he measured and then recorded previously unmapped territories. George was a man at 17. David was born in 1801. At 10 years old, he began a career at sea, serving as naval cadet on board the Essex. At 11, he saw his first battle. When he was 12, David was entrusted to pilot a captured British prize ship back to the United States. On the journey, the captured British captain took issue at being ordered around by a 12-year-old and announced that he was going below to get his pistols. David promptly sent the captain word that if he stepped foot on deck with his pistols, he would be shot and thrown overboard. Though David was only 12 years old, he acted like a man. Laura was born in 1867. Her family moved often due to crop failure. Because of their frequent moves, Laura and her siblings largely educated themselves. When she was 15, Laura decided to become a teacher, as her family was in need of extra income. She signed on to teach at County Schoolhouse 12 miles from her parents' home. She was only able to visit them on weekends. By age 15, Laura had become an independent woman. Such exemplary youth were not uncommon for their time. You were treated as an adult as soon as you had the body of an adult. This could mean going to university or entering into your profession at 15 years old or younger. Imagine if youth today had similar aspirations. Recently, though, the age of adulthood has been raised by a good 3 years. With this has come a new age, the teenager. Teenagers did not exist 100 years ago. The first recorded use of the word teenager came in 1941. Since then, this modern phenomenon has taken us by storm. The label teenager generally refers to a certain age group. However, it has also taken on the connotation of immature behavior. I have seen my peers live up to this label in many different ways. I recently had a very memorable birthday. I invited some friends over, but instead of talking with me or even making eye contact, they scrolled through their phones the entire time. Some of my peers have diagnosed themselves with a mental illness. Often, instead of seeking help, they look for validation of their problems. Clearly, this artificial extension of childhood has had negative impacts, the culmination being the new epidemic termed failure to launch. Another name for this epidemic is Peter Pan syndrome. According to the University of Granada, Peter Pan syndrome affects those who do not want or feel unable to grow up, people with the body of an adult, but the mind of a child. Though this syndrome affects adults, you can see its early manifestations in the teen years. According to Rachel Denning from The Extraordinary Family Life, failure to launch can be seen in the teen years in forms such as a lack of motivation, unrealistic goals, blaming others for your own situation, narcissism, low levels of persistence, high expectations of others, but not of yourself, and a lack of basic adult skills. Unfortunately, behavior like this is extremely widespread. Common Sense Media recently reported that teenagers spend on average 9 hours a day consuming entertainment media. Studies continue to be done on the rising levels of narcissism, antisocial behavior, and the lack of motivation among the younger generation. We all enjoy the story of Peter Pan, but having people act like him is alarming. What enables teenagers today to act like Peter Pan? Well, behind every Peter is a Wendy. Wendy deals with everything that Peter doesn't want to do, which allows him to exist. Today, where dependence is common, failure to launch is not just the result of overprotective parents and apathetic teens. Instead, it is the result of a Wendy culture. During the teen years, it has become normal to expect little from youth. Many teens have all their needs met by their parents. Parents give their children privileges such as a phone, access to a car, and even credit card without expecting much in return. These low expectations continue on in school, work, and other social settings. The danger of low expectations is that people fall to them. As Michelangelo said, The greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. The solution to this is to expect more from teens. Just as George, David, and Laura did, teenagers today can do adult tasks. There are even larger problems that come from failure to launch, aside from irresponsible members of society. With Peter Pan syndrome also comes increased risk of mental illness. Though failure to launch is of course not the only cause of a mental illness, it is often accompanied by a mental illness. Some of the main causes of mental illnesses are social isolation or loneliness, poverty or debt, severe or long-term stress, and unemployment or the loss of a job. All of these causes of a mental illness can also be outcomes of failure to launch. People without the necessary skills or desire to become an adult often have trouble holding down a job and taking care of themselves financially. Modern-day Peter Pans struggle taking on responsibilities and keeping commitments. This impairs their social skills and can lead to feelings of isolation, stress, and loneliness. What was first a failure to launch can become a mental illness, which then perpetuates a person's inability to launch. Feelings of anxiety and depression as you transition into adult life are not uncommon. What sets those with failure to launch apart from everyone else is that they are not equipped to overcome the challenges of assimilating into adult life. This makes their natural anxiety much harder to overcome. Teenagers today must be taught emotional self-reliance and effective coping mechanisms. Teaching teenagers to be self-reliant and expecting great things of them is only part of the cure for Peter Pan syndrome. The other part is teaching them to have a sense of purpose, so they desire to reach their full potential. If your teenager is sleeping in late into the afternoon, instead of being frustrated with them, see it from their perspective. What do they have to get out of bed for? Why would they want to? If your teenager is excited about their life, they'll be motivated to get out of bed. And if they're not, change that. Teenagers naturally seek excitement and risk. Satisfy that desire with real experiences. Support them in their goals. As Jansen Russell says, the teenage years are a golden opportunity where you have great mental capacity and yet few responsibility. Seize this opportunity. When you are passionate about something, you have purpose. That purpose translates into motivation to get out of bed, to turn off your phone, and to work through your problems. Motivation can lead you not only to become a competent adult, but to become an extraordinary person. George, who became a man at 17, would eventually lead an entire Virginia militia, and then a Continental Army. He is best remembered as George Washington, the first American president. David, who at 12 years old dared a British captain to come on board, became Admiral David Farragut, an instrumental player in the United States Civil War. Laura, who began her life as a pioneer schoolteacher, would eventually publish her story in the revered Little House series. Each of these three individuals began their journey toward greatness at a young age. We want teenagers to do the same, not only to become competent adults, but to become contributors to society and happy, well-rounded individuals. They must become independent to do that. James Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, wrote, "The moment you doubt whether you can fly, you cease forever to be able to do it." Never doubt that your teenager can grow up and become an extraordinary person. Thank you.